Hi, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of The Apparition, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be doing my April wrap-up, and I have been sick and I have a giant headache right now, so I'm hoping I have enough brain capacity to do this, but if I don't do it now, I'm not going to have enough time to edit the video in time. So we're just going to do the best we can. If I forget things, if I get muddled, I'm sorry. I'm going to start out with the DNFs I had for this month. I had 3 of them. Starting with Bloodguard. This one had a really good premise because it has gladiator stuff in it, and I found that really interesting because instead of just people, he was battling like mythical creatures like dragons and trolls and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting, you know, and he's supposed to fall in love with this elven princess, and it just sounded like it would be really cool. But unfortunately, this just wasn't for me. You get the perspective of both the guy and the girl, and when you're in the guy's head, he's very sexualized, which, yes, he's a man, but I don't want to read that. And the dialogue is very modern, and this is supposed to be medieval times, and so that just kept taking me out of the story. I just didn't like that. And then the love story was very insta-lovey, and I don't like that. I prefer a little bit of a slow burn to actually make the relationship feel authentic instead of just, oh, you're so hot, I love you, you know, because then it really just feels like insta-lust, not insta-love, because they don't know anything about each other other than they're attracted to each other. So I just don't prefer that in my love stories. And the action scenes, which is apparently most everybody's favorite part of this book, just didn't really do it for me. I was just like, whatever, you know? So I just decided to quit while I was ahead because it just wasn't doing much for me. And then we have The Familiar. This one's also medieval, but it takes place in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. And we have this girl who can do magic, and so obviously she would be in trouble during this time. But that's the part that really bothered me the most about this, is if you're gonna play up like the Spanish Inquisition and she's supposed to be like, oh, what if they think I'm a witch and, you know, I get tortured for heresy or whatever. Like, that's a great premise. But in this book, everybody knows about her magic and they're going to do like a competition with other people that have magic. And that just seems disingenuous to the time period. It's like, that would not happen because they would all be tortured for heresy and probably executed. So the fact that even the king himself is involved in this magical tournament, I'm just like, what? That just doesn't make sense to me, you know? And I thought it would have been much more interesting if she had to hide her magic and she had to try and hide from the Spanish Inquisition, you know, and there was sense of danger, you know, that would have been a lot more interesting. But instead, she's kind of coerced into this competition, but at the same time she wants to get rich and famous and make a better life for herself than just being a servant. But that's it. Like, there was no high stakes, there was no danger, there was no, you know, it's not like if she doesn't do this tournament, somebody will die, or if she does the tournament, she might be executed as a witch. Like, there was no high stakes, there was no danger, there was no anything like that. And so it just fell flat, and I just felt very disinterested. And again, the love is kind of insta-lovey, and I just didn't care about it. So this one just didn't work for me. And then we have Best Offer Wins, and this one pains me so much because I was so excited for this one. I thought it was going to be very, very fun, and it was going to be right up my alley, but this has a unlikable character, and I could see where it was headed, and I knew I wasn't going to like the ending to this book, and I just didn't want to go through pages and pages and pages of what I knew was going to happen. So I guess what I'm actually saying is this book was pretty predictable, and I didn't like the direction it was taking. And like, I understood that that was the premise, but at the same time, I thought that things would change, that things would happen, but it seems like we were just gonna stay the course type thing. I don't know if that makes any kind of sense, but, and then I just didn't like some of the comments and stuff that our main character would make. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way, so this just wasn't for me. And then I read a YA romance called Dungeons and Drama, and I thought this was super, super cute and entertaining, and I really enjoyed it. I would actually give this 5 stars. I just thought it was a lot of fun, and especially for a YA romance, I thought it was very well written and very well done. So we have this drama geek and this nerd, and she gets in trouble for stealing the car, and she has to work at her dad's shop, which is like a gaming store, where she meets this guy because he works there as well, and she sees that he's having a crush on this girl, and this girl's not giving him the time of day. And so she decides to make a deal with him that she will help him make his crush jealous and therefore get her to pay attention to him if he will pretend to be her boyfriend, because she recently broke up with her boyfriend. And when she ran into him, she told him that she had a boyfriend because she didn't want to be the loser that was all alone, you know. And so she's like, if you pretend to be my boyfriend, I'll help you get your crush. But along the way, of course, they start catching feelings for each other. But I just thought this was really cute and really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And then we have The Ghost Rider by Julie Clark, and this one started out really strong. I really was enjoying it. I thought it was intriguing. I thought it was, you know, I wanted to know what the mystery was and who actually did this murder all those years ago, because this is about this woman whose job it is to ghostwrite people's novels, which is usually memoirs, and she gets the opportunity to write the memoir for her own father, who was accused of killing his siblings when he was a kid. And so she wants to know what actually happened all those years ago. So at first it was really intriguing, and I was excited to read and find out what happened all those years ago. But at the farther I got into it, like halfway through, it just started to become very repetitive. We were just going over the same events over and over and over and over again. And so I was starting to get bored. I was starting to lose interest. And so by the time I got to the end, like it was a good ending. I did like the ending, but by that point I was mostly just looking for it to get over. So I did like this one, but at the same time, it's definitely not a new favorite by any means. So I would probably land on like a 3.5 for this one. And then we have One Yellow Eye. And this is a zombie book, but it reads a lot more like science fiction than horror. But I actually really enjoyed that aspect of it, because this is, I think, right after COVID. So they already had COVID, and then they had another outbreak with another disease that turns you into zombies. And they ended up being able to execute all of them and, you know, make the world safe or whatever. And now they're trying to figure out vaccines and the cure for this disease. But our main character, who is a scientist, her husband actually was bitten, and instead of putting him down like she should have, because he's the love of her life, she ended up chaining him up in her apartment because she was bound and determined that she was going to find a cure and she was going to save her husband. So this book is largely about grief and about, you know, losing loved ones and all of that. And it's also, on the flip side, very scientific. So if you don't like hard science fiction, maybe this one won't be for you. But I really enjoyed those aspects where she's trying to discover the cure and she's looking into the disease. I found it very fascinating, and the direction that the disease took I thought was very intriguing. I'd never heard anything like that before, and so I was like, that is so cool, you know? I mean, terrifying, obviously, but cool. So this is more of like a contagion story, but I really enjoyed this one. I think I would probably give this 5 stars. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the ending, so I kind of waffle back and forth, but for the most part, I think I would give this 5 stars because I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was very well done and very well written, especially for being a debut author. And then I did a whole vlog and tier ranking for Rachel Hawkins, and so I read her newest book, The Storm, and I actually really enjoyed this one. It was a pretty simple story when you stop to think about it, but it was very enjoyable. It had just enough intrigue and just enough things that I liked about it. And I thought the parts about the actual hurricanes and the storms and stuff was very atmospheric and very intriguing. If you want to know my deep in-depth thoughts, then you can go ahead and go see the vlog, but this was a winner for me. I think this is probably my second favorite of hers so far. I still like The Wife Upstairs the most, I think, but this is definitely a close second. I really enjoyed it. So I'd probably give it about a 4.5, something like that. And then I also read Simone St. James's new book, The Box Full of Darkness. And I don't really want to say anything about this one because I have an entire vlog and tier ranking for Simone St. James coming out this month. So if you want to know how I felt about this book, then go ahead and wait for that video. And then my daughter brought home a book from her school library that interested me, so I ended up reading it. And it's called Seer of Shadows. And this is about this young boy who is an apprentice to a photographer back in the 1800s, and he gets involved in a scam because his boss decides that he's going to scam this older rich woman out of her money by stating that her daughter, who just recently passed away, is a ghost in his photographs, that he was able to capture her essence and her spirit. But really, he's just you know, double exposuring the film, and that's creating these ghostly images. And so our main character is feeling conflicted about that. He doesn't want to pull a fast one over on this woman, but when he goes to this woman's house to help out his boss, he discovers that maybe her young daughter actually is a ghost and is haunting that house, and only he can see this real spirit. So I thought this was really fun. I thought this was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy historical horror. I enjoy ghost stories, and so this was really up my alley, so I would give this 4 stars. And then I also read Burn the Kingdom Down, and this was a NetGalley arc, and this came out March 31st. This is about this girl whose sister was taken to the rival's country's palace in order to wed their prince, in order to keep the peace and to keep the treaty that they have going with each other, because the other country or nation says that they will protect them if they give them bagrava, I think it's called, which is this plant that you have to have magic in order to grow it, and it has many uses. And so this other nation's like, you know, if you give us this special magical fruit, then we will protect you from marauders that are always trying to take you out, basically. And this other nation also has magical powers, and so they can move the earth and move mountains and rocks and stuff. But our main character's sister, who was going to go wed this prince, she was there for about a year, and then come to find out that she had an accident and she fell off the cliff. But she doesn't think it's an accident. She thinks that her sister was murdered. And because she's second in the line for the throne, she goes to take her sister's place to marry this prince. And she is like, you know, while I'm here, I'm going to find out what happened to my sister. So I'm sorry if you can hear barking. If I'm not downstairs with my dog, then she just goes out and barks. So I'm sorry about that. But anyways, I did enjoy this one. I thought it was a little bit long. I thought it could have been shorter. And I wanted a little bit more detail when it came to this magical fruit. Like, they didn't really explain too much of what it was used for. Like, the nation that grows it, they didn't really tell you what they used it for and why it was so special. Or if they did, I don't remember. So I don't know. But other than that, I really did enjoy it. I found it a little bit predictable though. But even though it was a little bit predictable, I did enjoy my time with it. And I probably would give it about 3.5 or 4 stars. So that's it. That's all the books I read in the month of April. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. Please subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.